like to open our Port of Siuslaw Commission meeting for Wednesday, September 20th. And first on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is that by consent?
Well, that's just if anybody has anything to add to the agenda
Nothing.
or change.
Nothing? Nothing to add, okay. Next on the agenda would be public comment. Do we have any?
Kelly, can you look and see if anybody? Nobody signed up.
Nobody? Okay. Next on the agenda would be approval of minutes. And
So moved.
so the minutes are approved by consent. Next is financials, and that is you, Dina.
Okay. All right, bills paid in August were in the amount of $103,650.02. On the balance sheet, you will see that the checking account has a negative $6,000. That was not an overdraft. I just wanted to point this out. That was just in the time between cutting some checks and transferring some money. So on August 31st, there was actually $10,000 in the account. This was just where the QuickBooks register was at as we were processing these payments. Also, on the general fund variance report, on page 2, I wanted to point out that account number 4515, the State Forest Service sales, we did get $14,000 in for that, which is pretty nice. And I don't really have anything else on the general fund variance report, but I'm happy to answer questions if anybody has any. If not, we'll move on to the capital maintenance fund. There was an expenditure of $20,000 in August for the phase 2 of the Wharf Boardwalk fire system replacement. And if you'll look at the occupancy report, you'll see that we did pretty well for the month of August. 86% is better than 81% last year. And mortgage was even up 58% from 55% last year.
Good trend.
Are there not as many bicycles going through? Because I noticed that one part's up in July
Mhm.
and then August. It
Yeah.
must have been a really big thing that happened last year in August.
Well, it's still fairly new, the hiker biker area. We did, when we first opened it up, we had a tourism grant. So we did a lot of advertising. We did some digital advertising and we aren't doing that this year. So
Is it that expensive that it doesn't pay off?
the advertising, it was about $300 a month. So there's
Yeah,
a
that's
chunk,
quite a bit.
you know,
That
so,
would cut into your hiker biker profit, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
yeah.
I bet that those August numbers were also affected by the smoke, because I know what they canceled Cycle Oregon altogether.
That's right.
And so so the word could have gotten out that even on the coast, we were getting smoke.
Well, that's all I have on the financials.
Okay. Do we have any old business that we need to discuss?
No.
Okay, I guess we'll move on to new business.
Okay,
Discuss organizational structure of the port, and that would be Mr. Meyer.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank the port and therefore the community for sending me up to the training session in Newport. I thought it was really worthwhile. Hopefully I learned what to do and not to do, especially regarding quorums and illegal meetings and things that you need to avoid. And I also took advantage at that time of, there was pretty good, there was a legal presenter, a lawyer that works with a lot of ports, and she presented, she handled maybe 50 or 60% of the presentation. And I took an opportunity to ask her at that time, because when I was running for election and prior to that, there were a couple of points made about the way our port is organized. Namely, right now we have a port manager, and the port manager answers to us and conducts the supervision of the employees and the operation of the port. And it's so I just went up to the lawyer. I says, do you see any legal problem with the way our port is organized? Because we've had it challenged. And she says, none at all. But what is interesting, during the discussion with the entire group, she made the point that ports have been assigned far more responsibility than others, than library districts and the fire districts. She mentioned the ORSs under 777 that grants us a lot of responsibility. So relative to the port structure, I had Dina, and it's really rather straightforward, but it really answers the question in terms of what we're allowed to do in terms of how we're organized. And statement's real straightforward. A port may employ engineers, superintendents, mechanics, clerks, and this is the one that is a big basket because it catches how we want to organize, period, or other persons as it may find requisite, necessary, or convenient, and fix their rate of compensation. Okay, that last part of that sentence, like I say, covers the waterfront. Because if we choose to have a port manager and an administrative structure that helps us, it's necessary and convenient, then the law, clearly the law under 777 allows us to do that. However, as opposed to like a school superintendent and others, there is no statutory definition of a port manager or responsibilities of a port manager. It is a matter of what we set in our policy book and a matter of what we set in our contract with our employees in terms of what responsibility they take as assigned by the port. But in no cases are we relieved from the responsibility that is given us under 777. So with that, we've talked about about going through our policy book. And one of the things that I'm now going to pay a lot of attention to is just what responsibilities we give, and remembering if we don't assign responsibility to an employee, that responsibility remains with the Port Commission. There is no implied responsibility. It is what responsibilities we delineate, again, with contract with the port manager and in our policy book. So when we get a chance to go through that again, and I'm sure there'll be work sessions that the public will be invited to, they're going to get a chance, and we're going to get a chance to see just how the responsibility is assigned and how it relates to 777. The other question I ask, because it has been raised, what responsibility does the port have to the city when they undertake construction and other projects within the city? And when I discussed this with Dina, she showed me a legal opinion And the lawyer has allowed us to excerpt part of that legal opinion, and that's what's stated in item 2, and I'm going to read it, and then I think that can conclude it because it's pretty definitive. It says, cities are authorized and in some cases required to plan for and regulate development within city boundaries. ORS 227.215 provides that cities are the government agencies that regulates development of properties within the city. Now, I'm going to skip down to the actual ORS. In fact, this is the last paragraph. In fact, state law provides that special districts are required to abide by cities' land use and building regulations. City ordinances regulating the locations, construction, maintenance, repair, alteration, and use and occupancy of land and building and other structures shall apply to publicly owned properties except as the ordinance prescribed to the contrary. So the city could relinquish some authority if their ordinances required it. Now, at the conclusion of those questions I asked of the lawyer, I said, okay, if somebody disagrees with our port structure, or somebody disagrees with how we've set up our relationship with the city in terms of permits and so forth, where do they go? Do they go to the Ethics Commission? Do they go to the Secretary of State? Do they go to the Attorney General? And the answer is no to all three. A remedy for a challenge to the way we have structured our administration within the port, and a remedy for somebody that disagrees with our relationship to the city, they have to go into state court and get a court order to have us cease and desist. Now, I ask about what are the chances we're going to be spending any legal monies defending ourselves in terms of the way our administrative structure is currently set, and essentially it's zero. The way we operate under the law and under 777 is essentially zero risk of being challenged. And the same is true for our relationship with the city. As long as we comply with this ORS, a legal challenge to our relationship is virtually nil. But by the same token, both with regard to responsibilities under 777 and our relationship with the city, I'm also not in favor of giving up any rights that are granted to us. I'm going to be, and I think we all are, going to be very jealous of the rights granted us by the Oregon Revised Statute. But by the same token, I feel confident that right now our particular arrangements are correct. Now, the reason I brought this up is I would like to get the issue settled. And I think from the questions I made to the lawyer when I asked, and again, it was nice to get some free advice without having to pay it. They didn't mind. I think the issue is settled, and if the public wants to disagree, they're welcome to. I wouldn't necessarily encourage anybody to go into court, but they're welcome to go into court and see if a judge or a hearing will tell us, no, you're not operating correctly. My confidence is we're right on the ball. With that concludes my statements on those issues, and again, I hope it puts it to bed.
Well, thank you for that, Bill. Okay, next, manager report.
No, I got a resolution. It's under-
Okay, no, resolution to authorize maintenance of vehicle expenditure.
Well, Commissioners, last month I came to you asking for money for security cameras, and this month I'm coming to you asking to spend money on a maintenance vehicle. We've got 2 vehicles that we operate for operations, and the one vehicle that has just broken down again is a 92 Chevy. It's 25 years old. It's full of rust. It's got, the ignition has failed, we've replaced the clutch several times, the list, I've got a full-on list here, and I'm just gonna save time by not reading it, but it is, it's in pretty bad shape, and I hate to see us.
That old blue?
Yes, it's the blue Chevy that you see putting down the road at 20 miles an hour because it can't go any faster than that. So we have done some looking around. I'm asking for an expenditure not to exceed $12,000, but I just picked that number out of the blue. I know we can do way better than that. We've already looked on Craigslist. We're finding some utility trucks between 5,000, 7,000 that are not that old, and we're really looking into trying to do our due diligence in looking for something that will get us by for several more years, and then we can actually put this old one up for auction and hopefully get some little bit of money out of that. But replacing this truck has been on the project list for many years, and I know that you haven't seen that project list, and that's another thing that I do want to promise you, that you are going to be seeing that project list very soon, because I don't like this pattern of coming to you and saying, now I need this and now we need that. My goal is in the off season to sit down with you and provide you with a full list of all the maintenance projects that we've got, and prioritize them and actually plan forward. And so anyway.
So that's suggesting this is not in the budget, and that next year, by golly, we're gonna do a plan to where, because the year's not even, just barely getting started.
Right. That is correct.
So I guess we need to vote on that.
You need a motion for, and the motion needs to include the dollar amount as this, can we word it as a not to exceed? Is that?
Yes, you
okay?
can.
And that dollar amount was 12,000?
Yes.
I would move that we authorize expenditure for replacement of the vehicle as described by Dina to not to exceed 12,000?
What is that, resolution 920-17A?
Yes. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. The resolution passes.
Thank you.
Now, manager report.
Last month, I was directed to work on an RFP for, to get realtors to submit plans for the, for selling and marketing the Pacific View Industrial Park property. It's been a busy month, and I apologize that I haven't gotten that done yet, but I am just starting to work on it. So I just wanted to let you know that that is in process now. And I'm getting some legal advice for that as well. Last week was a pretty busy week. We had the Trailblazers come through with their Rip City Relay, and they staged in the Noble Street parking lot on Tuesday. On Wednesday, Nancy and I went to a Lane Area Commission on Transportation gathering. They all came out here to Florence. We went on a tour with the city and looked at a couple, and Aaron did a wonderful presentation and a tour for them around the city. And then when we got back to the event center, I put together a PowerPoint presentation on the port and gave that to them.
And it was very good.
Good.
Thank you, Nancy. And then Friday was kind of a nice end of the week. We had a marching band out on the boardwalk around noon. The beat goes on, and they did a great job. It was a beautiful day, and a lot of people attended, so it was a lot of fun. Some of the projects that we've been working on, we did get the 1499 Bay Street lot sealed and restriped. And the Wi-Fi upgrade and security camera project are going real well. We're almost done. We still have a few things left to do. A couple things on the cameras, and one more thing down in the marina in the west side to get a pole installed for better Wi-Fi down there. And we are starting to interview for the maintenance staff position. We got 10 applications, and we are interviewing 3 people today and tomorrow.
Is this full-time?
Yes.
That port property on the corner and the property that was restriped, is that in two tax lots or is that?
That's one.
That's one. And that doesn't include the coffee roasters, or is it coffee?
No, there's an alley that goes behind, and then the coffee roasters are
And
just
so we
behind the alley.
supply parking for, well, for anybody who
It's the
chooses to
public,
park
it's
there.
public parking.
Okay.
And parking for the parking space, the 7 spaces on the east side of the lot are designated for our tenant in that building.
Okay, they are, okay. Okay,
A previous tenant had signage up there,
Okay.
and so I'm talking with the new tenants on whether they want to do signage or not.
okay.
And that's all I have.
Okay, do we have any commissioner reports? Nancy?
I have just two things. I went with Dina to the OPPA conference, August 24th in Salem. And then we did the Lane Act thing that was here. And it was a surprise that we were part of the whole agenda, which didn't help Dina a whole lot because she, you know, in the middle of all this busy time, she had to put together this thing for me for our presentation as the port, because the city and the port were the whole program. And it was quite nice because there was a bus that came from Eugene with the Lane Act people that came on the bus, and then two visitors or people that come to the Lane Act meetings. They are very adamant that somehow we get a public bus between Eugene and Florence so that people can come here, spend the day or whatever, and people can go from here to Eugene. And so there was a comment made by the man who is, can't think of his name right now, but representing the LTD. And he suggested that we somehow work to make that happen. To do that, Florence has to join the transit district, which if they'd have done it years ago when the LTD was being first done in Eugene, Mackenzie did, other places did, we did not. And so now we need to do that, and it works as a tax on businesses, and I don't know the amount, but it's a workable thing because of the way that people can move that don't have cars. And every meeting that I've gone to in Eugene, there have been speakers asking that we have a bus that comes to Florence. So that's a thing that you will probably see a lot more of, and because I think the city's going to work on that. I am talking to people on the same kind of thing because of my sitting on that thing, and right now that's a big thing. It would be for all of us, and that's what I did. And I really thank Dina because it delayed the work she was trying to do when I hit her with this.
I attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I was well received, and it was a very productive meeting. I mentioned that we're still trying to move forward with the estuary trail, and mentioned the repairs that we're hoping to do on our bank and berm, and their main topic, however, at that point was the last rods and roadie, and they were trying to determine whether it's something they want to continue to do year after year. They did have a financial breakout of what the costs were and what the return was, and so hopefully they'll do it again next year. I particularly enjoy the event, and it looks like it'll be sponsored again by the chamber and their partners.
Any other reports? Okay, I guess we can move on to public comment again. It doesn't look like we have one person.
I've got a comment
Okay.
on the Ron Preisler, city councilor. The cost on the transit is .0075 per dollar of salary. And I think it would be very hard to pass with our businesses. Our businesses don't particularly like taxes. Most people don't like a tax addition. LTD is looking at a pilot program down the line where they could use grant money to do the planning for it. And it'll take time, but that's probably the best avenue that we will have to go forward with it. The current bus that we have, I've heard, is very expensive. It's like $25 each way. Our citizens is not gonna pay that, and I can't imagine people in Eugene paying that either. That's my comment. Thank you.
Any other?
I wanted to, want me to go up there?
You can, either way.
Oh, I'll stay. I just wanted to thank you for supporting the idea on having a group together. My life's been up and down, so I haven't been able to do anything about that, but I hope to do it soon. You know, the 40 acres out on the other side, Dave said it could be a national veterans cemetery. Since it's at the end of the runway, you wouldn't have to worry about hitting any buildings. You know, veterans cemetery. And I have written down what I feel about the riprap thing. I'm not gonna go through it right now, but I'll let Dana get you my view on that. And we need another dumpster down at the marina. The one that's there it's overfull, and all the trash is blown in the water, and if you look down underneath the boardwalk, it is trash city. It looks really bad. So I think you should get another dumpster down there.
Are people bringing their household garbage and tossing it in there to fill it up?
Yeah?
I don't think so. I think it's mostly dock.
Yeah.
I think it's dock debris.
Yeah, a lot of it comes from the crab shack. And that's mainly, and we do have one person down there that
Yeah,
takes
we
advantage of it.
got one boat down there, fills it up as soon as it's empty.
But that shouldn't be,
But people aren't driving in with a plastic bag
No,
and a big
but in
old
fact,
plastic black bag and tossing
the
it in.
city has taken away 2 garbage cans that came up on Opal Street that were out on the streets, so a lot of, trash that was going in there isn't there anymore, it's just lying around.
Are we talking about a full-size dumpster, 4x4x8,
Yeah.
like 4 feet high?
Yeah,
No, you're talking like 12 foot wide, 4 foot by 4 foot. It's a triple dumpster.
And how often would that be emptied?
They dump it twice a week.
Twice a week.
Oh my.
Something else is going on
And
there.
it, yeah, well.
Somebody's using it for their household trash.
Now, if you go through it, we sit and watch it. We sit right down below
I mean,
and
dog
watch
food
it.
can't fill it up.
It's not, people aren't coming in off the street. Very few people use it. The restaurant uses it, the people that are staying in the harbor use it. Most of it is, if you really look what's in there, like she said, it's mostly lumber, 2x4s, old engine parts. It's mainly boat debris.
Wow.
And it's, they come out Monday morning and dump it, and by noontime it's full again.
I guess I gotta pay more attention on the walkthrough.
Well, the problem with it is it reeks so bad and stinks so terribly bad that many people come walking up on trying to get into the restaurant, and they stop and they go, "Dear, I don't think, no." And and they turn around and they go back. They can't even get into the restaurant, the smell is so bad. It's been a problem.
All right.
It's good to know.
I'm gonna keep an eye on that one.
Come down Sunday night and look at it.
All right. I'm generally around Sunday night, so.
The boardwalk market has responsibility to dump the garbage cans, and there's no place for them to put the garbage that they take out of the garbage.
Something's going on there. Something's going on.
So is that it for public comment then? Nobody else?
Good job, David.
Okay, upcoming meetings, our next meeting on October 18th will be at the Mapleton High School. And I guess at this time we can adjourn our regular meeting and we're gonna go into executive session. So the public at this time needs to.
You need to read this one.
You can read the script when you're.